they're painting themselves as celebrities. And I think they're also trying to paint themselves at the same time as normal as they see it. But what comes through with such clarity is that neither of them has any idea what normal people are.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me to talk all about the first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan. So I feel like we didn't get these giant bombshells that maybe we were expecting. So what was kind of your reaction to these first episodes?
We didn't, did we? I think it was really boring, if I'm completely honest. It was sort of scripted documentary by numbers. Mm-hmm. Now, it had everything we expected in it, all of the same old accusations and allegations we've been hearing since they left the UK, but not very much more. And I think that if anyone was watching it for explosive gossip about the royal family, they would have been sorely disappointed. I know certainly that I was really grateful for the 1.5 speed function in Netflix, because even watching it sped up, it felt so slow.
Yeah, it was a bit slow. I mean, out of all of this, what was kind of your biggest revelation?
It's really hard to know because there weren't really any revelations. I found one bit where she talked about her niece quite interesting. The idea that she had this very close relationship with her niece. And in fact, this was one person from her father's family who was actually interviewed in the whole piece. Mm-hmm. I think that was a glaring omission from a documentary maker not to include, for example, her father as one of the interviews. Maybe they tried, maybe they didn't. Obviously, we know that she doesn't talk to him anymore, and that was covered a bit in her account. So instead, we had her niece, who is the daughter of her half-sister. The half-sister she claimed not really to know or to have met very much when she was growing up, who disagrees with that evaluation herself. And so obviously there's a beef there that we know about. Now, what was interesting was a recounting of the story where she said that they didn't invite her niece to her wedding, even though they just had a section in the program where they outlined how close they were and how actually they were just like sisters, according to Meghan. And yet they didn't invite her to the wedding, they said, because there was this bad blood with her sister, her half-sister, who is her niece's mother. Now, if that's the case, that still doesn't really explain very much to me. I mean, this was a massive wedding, very few members of her actual family there. Here is somebody she's genuinely close to by her own reckoning and by the niece's reckoning, and she's not invited. But people like George Clooney, who she'd never actually met, were invited to the wedding. That felt very strange. And even if their explanation was true, I don't think it did them many favors in terms of their reputation for being cold towards family members.
Yeah, that was a bit jarring. And you could tell that the niece is still pretty hurt about all of that, as I would be too, because it just seems odd that, you know, you have one member of your family there and you can make room for another. That was a bit weird. What do you think the reaction to the royal family would be of Harry and Meghan saying that they disliked her for being an actress the most?
Well, I remember when their relationship was announced and then eventually their wedding here in the UK, and I just don't recognise the characterisation of it that they've put in most of their media output since they left. In fact, I think that here there was really a joyous celebration of her up until pretty much when they decided to leave. The wedding itself was a massive celebration of both of them. It was nothing like any royal wedding we'd seen before, in that it had tons of influence from her background and her life. And I think that the idea that Britain actually reacted aggressively and racistly towards her in that period is just so unfamiliar to anybody that lived here. And so I think that the idea that the royal family or the media or anyone really reacted badly to her because she was an actress, it's really clutching at straws. I don't think anyone reacted badly to her for any other reason than her personality and her behavior as it mapped out over time. I really, really don't. There may be a few outliers who did have some sort of other motivation, who just didn't like her for another reason. But I don't think that was mainstream, and I don't think the characterization of it by the couple is one that many people here recognize. And I ought to say as well that most of these 3 episodes was focused on how tired they are about royalty. They complain all the time about royalty in the media. But where would they be without royalty? And where would they be without the media? And that goes for today as well as in the past before they left. Without royalty and without media, they would be nowhere. They would be nobody. We would not have heard of either of them. She, at most, would be a C-list actress in a TV show that most people didn't watch. And I think that they carry on every single day to prove that their links to royalty, their links to Harry's family in particular, and their coverage in the media, which they court so extensively, is really the only reason we know anything about them and continue to have any interest in them.
Right. I mean, so how do you think royals probably feel in general that they said they wanted this to live this private life, yet they were showing a lot of personal photos, you know, personal stories, text messages, private videos, and even private photos of other members of the royal family? I mean, how do you feel like the royal family feels about that?
Well, the royal family, you know, have unusual and weird jobs and existences. There's no two ways about that. So that could have been an interesting part of this series. But instead, I think what we're seeing is the making of two people's careers as professional criers. Literally, what they seem to get paid, and paid really well for, is crying on camera. I think that the royal family are ribbon cutters, handshakers. That's the sort of thing that they do for their job. And there's a bit of a difference between the two, because the royal family try to maintain some form of relevance and interest in the nation by doing those things that maybe speak to the nation, reflect the nation, reflect Britishness, perhaps have a sense of service and duty. Also, of course, they're incredibly privileged and live very wealthy lifestyles, but they try to do it, I think, in a way that means that they'll still maintain the support of the country on the whole. Meghan and Harry aren't doing that. Meghan and Harry, even in this program, have opened up their Instagrams and their photo reels in order to show everybody all these wonderful trips they went on to Africa, all of the luxury, the glitz, the glamour. There's this scene where she has that massive, slightly hideous red dress wheeled into their apartment, and it takes like a team of 3 people to put her in it. So far, so normal. I'm not sure most of us need that many people to get us dressed to go to an event. I think that they're painting themselves as celebrities. And I think they're also trying to paint themselves at the same time as normal as they see it. But what comes through with such clarity is that neither of them has any idea what normal people are, because they're just not normal. They're not normal in their lifestyle or their wealth. They're not normal in their ambitions, but they're just not normal as people as well. I don't think their personalities are normal. I think they're massive narcissists from what we can see in this film, in these 3 films so far. And I just don't think that does resonate with people. I think more and more people are just growing really tired about this at a time in the world when most people are struggling. Most normal people are struggling financially, and they're struggling in their lives in a number of ways. And Meghan and Harry are still crying about bridesmaid dresses, or whether they had enough bodyguards, or whether they can drive somewhere without the paparazzi following them. And yet, there we had this sort of fly on the wall moment in a car journey they took where they were both acting very scared, didn't see a single pap in that entire sequence. A lot of it just didn't ring true.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.